Good morning, students. Let's start with a new chapter today. You have this chapter in your syllabus, An Angel in Disguise. This is a beautiful story written by T.S. Arthur, and this story is about an orphan girl named Maggie. Let's go through it. Let's read the introduction. It is on page 76. T.S. Arthur was a popular 19th century American writer. His stories, written with compassion and sensitivity, articulate and spread values and ideas that were associated with respectable middle class life in America. In his story, An Angel in Disguise, T.S. Arthur describes the transformative and restorative power of selfless love. In this story, T.S. Arthur, the writer, is actually talking about how love can actually transform you. It relates the advent of Maggie, a frail young orphan, into the lives of Wheelwright, Joe Thompson, and his vinegar-tempered wife, Jane. And this story is somewhat related, or it talks about this girl, Maggie, who is an orphan, and how she enters into the life of Joe Thompson and Jane Thompson and changes their lives forever. Now, Joe Thompson was a very kind hearted man. However, his wife, Jane Thompson, was a vinegar tempered woman, means she had a very rough kind of an attitude. And the miraculous effect that the child's presence has on the woman's character and the happiness that she brings to her adoptive family. It also tells us about how this Maggie, this little girl, was adopted by this family and how she changed their nature. How, her tenderness, her frail, kiddish looks and everything changed this woman's heart. Okay, let's read it, then you'll understand it. An Angel in Disguise. See, it is given here. It is written by T.S. Arthur. Idleness. When you're idle, you have nothing else to do. Vice, negativity. And intemperance means lack of moderation. When you are too much into drinking, had done their miserable work. So all these three negative things had done their miserable work. What was it? And the dead mother lay cold and still amid her wretched children. There was this woman who used to drink a lot. He had no work. He was filled with negativity. And because of these three things, she died. As a result, she died, and she was lying cold in between her wretched children, in between her poor children. Amid means between. She had fallen upon the threshold of her own door in a drunken fit and died in the presence of her frightened little ones. Now this woman, she was so drunk that she fell on the threshold of the door and she died there itself. And she died in the presence of her frightened kids. Now kids, these little young ones, they were there, three of them. They were sitting there when their mother died right in front of them. I hope this much is clear. So these are the three children that you can see, John, Kate and Maggie. John is 12 years old, Kate is somewhat 10 or 11, and Maggie, they haven't given the age, but she was the youngest girl. Let's see. Death touches the spring of our common humanity. This woman had been. Now understand how the people of the village used to treat her. Underline if you want. This woman had been despised, hated, scoffed, made fun of, and angrily denounced by nearly every man, woman and child in the village. So the people, what they've done to her, they hated her, they made fun of her, and they even declared that she should not be there. They hated her, they criticized her. But now, as the fact of her death was passed from lip to lip. Now, as a fact, because she was dead, So this message was passed to everyone that this woman who was actually hated by everyone is now finally dead. In subdued tones, pity took the place of anger. Underline it. Pity took the place of anger. Now, in subdued tones, people, they were not too loud, but they were talking about the death of this woman. She was idle. She had no job, nothing to work. She used to drink a lot and she died in front of her three little children. So people, they really hated her. So, however, because now that she was dead, pity, the anger of the people changed into pity, sorrow of denunciation. And they felt bad for the little ones. So, whatever the denunciation was, how they had hated her, thrown her out of their community, now it was all filled with sorrow. Neighbors went hastily means hurriedly, to the old tumble down hut, and in which she had secured little more than a place of shelter from summer heats and winter colds. Now, the moment these neighbors they got the news that she died, they went straight away to her hut. And now, understand, the place where she lived was a kind of a tumble down hut. Tumble down means something that is about to collapse. So, a hut that was just, where she could actually stay, keep herself safe from the heat of the summers and cold of the winters. It was not even a proper house. Come with grave clothes for a decent interment of the body. So some neighbors, they even came with the grave clothes, the clothes that we use when we are burying a person. For a decent interment means burial. And Christians, they bury people. And some with food for the half-starving children. Some people, they even got food for the children. 3 in number of these. Now from here you need to underline John, the oldest, a boy of 12, was a stout lad. Lad means boy, stout means he was a heavy-built boy, able to earn his living with any farm. So he was, strong enough to work and live with any farmer. Kate, between 10 and 11, was a bright, active girl, out of whom something clever might be made, if in good hands, means Kate was really smart, and if she's in the right hands, people can actually make her do good stuff, make her work. But poor little Maggie, from a window, the youngest was hopelessly diseased. Now this little girl was hopelessly diseased. She was bedridden. Why? 2 years ago, a fall from the window had injured her spine, and she had not been able to leave her bed since, except when lifted in the arms of her mother. So this poor little girl, she is bedridden. She had never moved without her mother's help. So her mother, she used to carry her into her arms. Is that clear? She was bedridden. And why was she bedridden? 2 years ago, she fell from the window and she injured her spine. Clear? Okay, let's continue. What is to be done with the children? Now, there was this huge problem. Everyone in the village, they were worried. What is it that we need to do, and what is that we can actually do with these children? That was the chief question now. The dead mother would go underground. Of course, now there was no problem. The mother, who was the troublesome lady, she was dead. She was no more there. And forever beyond all care and concerns of the villagers. Like now villagers, they were not even concerned about her, right? But the children must not be left to starve. But children, they should be taken care of. People, they just cannot leave these 3 young kids in a house with no food. After considering the matter and talking it over with his wife, now comes the Farmer Jones. See, I've written it here. Farmer Jones is the one who will take John. Is that clear? So after speaking to his wife, they decided to take John and do well by him, now that his mother is out of the way. And Mrs. Alice, who had been looking out for a bound girl means slave girl, concluded that it would be charitable in her to make choice of Katie. Katie is saying Kate, right? So Farmer Jones, he decided to take John. Mrs. Ellis, she decided to take Kate or Katie, as she thought she needed a slave girl. Even though she was too young to be much of use for several years. She was very young, just 10 or 11 years old. However, Mrs. Alice, she thought that maybe she's young and is of no use, but I can still take her and she can be a good slave. I could do much better, I know, said Mrs. Alice, but as no one seems inclined to take her, I must act from a sense of duty, expect to have trouble with the child. So she's really smart, Mrs. Alice. She wanted a slave girl. She's taking Kate, but she's pretending as if she's doing a charitable work towards the society. For she's an undisciplined thing. Now she calls this little poor girl undisciplined thing. And there's a reason. She feels that she's undisciplined. Why? Because of her mother. Maybe she was not kept properly. Maybe she was not taught good manners or whatever. Right? But no one said, I'll take Maggie. No one was ready to take Maggie. Why? There's a reason. She's a bedridden child. And if we talk about a society, nobody is ready to take responsibilities. Not only in a society, you can see if you ask someone to do something, they'll be like, why me? They are never ready to take responsibilities. And the same thing was happening with this poor girl. She was a bedridden child and therefore no one was ready to take her responsibility. She was a burden for them. Okay. Pitying glances means people, they had pity in their eyes. You know, the way they were looking at Maggie, their eyes, they were filled with pity. Pitying glances were cast on her wan and wasted form. It's given here, worn and wasted form means her body, right? So people, they were looking at her body with pity. That, oh, poor child, she cannot walk, she is bedridden. And thoughts were troubled on her account. People, they were really worried about her, but nobody was ready to open their hearts to take her. Mothers brought cast-off garments and removing her soiled and ragged clothes. Soiled and ragged means dirty and torn clothes. So what mothers did, the neighborhood women, they brought some clothes with them. They removed the dirty and torn clothes off from Maggie and they wrapped this poor child in a clean cloth. Dressed her in clean attire. Attire means dress. The sad eyes and the patient face of the little one touched many hearts. So the innocent face filled with pain, actually touched many hearts, but none of the neighbors were ready to open their heart to take that poor child. But none opened to take her in. Who wanted a bedridden child? You understand that? So nobody wanted a bedridden child, as a bedridden child is always a responsibility. Let's continue. Take her to the poor house, said a rough man, of whom the question, what's to be done with Maggie, was asked. Now maybe somebody must have asked the man, okay, what should we do with Maggie? So they told him, this another rough looking man, he said, the best thing for Maggie is, let's take her to the poor house. Now poor house is an orphanage, okay? Nobody is going to be bothered with her. So once we give her away, nobody will be bothered. We don't have to worry about her once she's given away. The poor house, underline it so that you know. The poor house is a sad place for a sick and helpless child. So this is the place where you keep sick and helpless children. For your child or mine, said the other, lightly speaking, but for this brat, it will prove a blessed change. So he says here, see, if we talk about our children, that place is not at all good. It will be a kind of a sad place for our children. But if we talk about, her, this poor little girl, then that particular place would be a kind of a blessing for her. How? She will get healthy food, doctor will take care of her, she'll be kept clean, and of course then she can recover. So people, they were not ready to keep her. However, they were ready to send her to the poorhouse. We'll do it till here. The rest we'll do in the next video. Right? We'll continue from here. I just want you to do one thing. Please, if possible, read this story every day. For example, if I've started with a new chapter, I want you to read it, because in class 9th and 10th, you'll not be writing the answers in your own words, imagining things. You will need keywords. They're very important for writing answers. So if you keep writing, keep reading it, keep underlining the important lines, you will know what are the keywords that we expect you to write. So please just do one thing. The best is that you can read this story. I've read it for you, so it is easier. You know the words, difficult words, and you know how to pronounce them. So please read it. It is only for your good. Right? So I'll continue with the same story in the next video. Thank you.